Shaken jockey. I'm bored. And a title is required for these things. So can't just do I can't just do Cutie Haven as live. Am I done crashing out? No, because I'm still mad. I'm still mad that I couldn't do this when I wanted to. Instead of instead of now when I'm tired. Those do not mean nothing. Your goals mean everything. But yeah, I know it's not your fault, babe. It's not your fault. Officiating. Oh, baby, it's not your fault. I promise. It's okay. It's okay. I promise. How was school? School's okay. Um, it's school. There's nothing exciting about it. It's just school. Yep. You start school next week.
medical professionals have gone viral. Bojack really wanted the snapshot to be about the bundle, but it's too bad.
Yes, I did.
Rest on the video instead.
Yeah, I did take my medicine.
Lots of things have changed. You change one is
Sorry, I'm.
and it covers things like redstone changes, minecart changes, baby animals, like all but a lot of stuff. I only care about the redstone.
My brain
and
is.
minecart changes, and I've organized them from least bad to most bad. So let's start with the least bad. Redstone torches got a texture change. I liked it. It looks very nice. I think this is just way better than the old texture. And yeah, not much else to say. Good job, good new texture, very cool. And now we have the first big change, which is Mojank's attempt to kind of get rid of locationality and directionality.
Yeah, my brain is not functioning properly because it's 10:30 at night and I'm tired.
Behaved in two pretty weird and niche ways. It was both directional and locational. So here are kind of two basic examples of it. If I hit this lever over here, as you can see, all the green pistons extend, but all the red pistons kind of get stuck in place. But it is consistent the entire time, despite both of these being activated at the same time. So yeah, this is directionality, which means depending on the direction that the redstone is facing, it will behave in a different way. Locationality is a little bit different and a little bit more complicated. So as you can see, we have a bunch of the same circuits facing the same direction, but some of them don't work, like this red one. Like this green.
My brain does not like being up this late, especially when I'm tired.
Your redstone can either be random across space or it can be random across. Let's talk about this random across time because
But I like.
for example, with two pistons and
No.
lever.
No.
This and this lever. This one will be the one that extends because it's a wide lever. And by activating from the top, then it's random again. But for some reason, if you put the lever here, then only this one activates, which it should be both because it's equidistant from this lever. I don't know. Again, we have another example. We have four pistons this time, and then under these blocks we have repeaters pointing into the red side.
Try to make me sleep. I don't want to sleep right now. I want to lie.
Same piece of redstone activated.
This is.
Again, there's levers, and for some reason, these pistons take priority, the ones facing north and south, and not these east and west pistons. I don't know, it's a little bit weird, but their intent to fix locationality does fix one of Minecraft's like oldest problems. Before you had a line of pistons like this that I mentioned us. Sometimes when you deactivate it, there would be like one or two that stick out, but now they will all extend back. Okay, so what do all these randomness changes really mean? Theoretically, they should only affect builds that were already locational, which in my opinion kind of had bad wiring to begin with if they were locational. But again, it depends. Would you rather have the contraction be random across space or random across time? Let's say you're building a piston door and you build it once in the correct location. Let's just say it's locational, but it works 100% of the time. If you move it in a separate location, it doesn't work. You instantly know that it's locational. But by introducing some randomness, there's a little bit of like unknown variables when you put this. Next up, we have minecarts. You've probably seen these. Minecarts got a huge reward at buckets and large. Come on, look at that. And there's also a game rule, which is minecart max speed. By default, it is set to 8 blocks a second, and the maximum is 1,000 blocks a second. I have it set to 1,000 because it's way more fun that way. And you've probably seen these all over the internet where you have minecarts spinning in a circle like this, and then you switch a rail onto a ramp, and then they get heated into the sky. It's beautiful. It truly is beautiful. This stuff is cool. I think this stuff is pretty neat. What's a little bit more controversial though is the stuff they changed with minecart stacking and the way minecarts snap the rails and get aligned. So, for example, before used to be able to place a bunch of minecarts onto one single rail. As you can see, it looks like I'm placing a bunch of minecarts on this rail, but it's only one. Same with dispensers. This is filled with minecarts. You dispense your first minecart onto the rail, you dispense more, and they just spit out into the ground. Not good. Minecart stack can be removed will break a lot of stuff, especially recent storage stack stuff, which uses a lot of stacked minecart chests and boppers and that kind of stuff. The next thing that was changed was the way minecarts kind of align themselves to rails. If you had kind of a curved rail setup like this, and you put a minecart on it, before it would kind of be on a diagonal and it would clip between these two blocks diagonally, and that would allow things like instant bolts to be possible. But now they kind of snap to the center of the block. So if you try to do an alignment setup like this, where you have a fence gate, this minecart would go up to the fence.
Oh, you hated how you were crashing out earlier. Oh, because you. Oh yes. The universe is trying to tell Layla something. What? Elaborate, please. Unless you're not supposed to say anything. If not, then I will go ask her. Then if not, then I will ask her. Oh, about her friend at camp. What was I trying to tell her about her friend at camp? She has too much riz.
But yeah, it's just a completely new system that needs a little bit of
Oh. So is the universe trying to play matchmaker?
all the redstoners are pissed off about. You would think it would be the random dust, dust being random instead of locational. Well, this is probably the worst thing in the snapshot. And to really understand what this is,
Dreams.
we kind of need to go over how QC
But-
works. So QC is
Whoa. What kind of dreams?
and then give them a block update, they will power. And then if you unpower it like this, and then you get one update.
That's what I want to know.
And the biggest reason why it's super useful is not because it can test the block but because it lets you power components from places that you otherwise shouldn't, which makes redstone a lot more flexible. For example, this repeater is piston, but also giving it updates. This comparator, same with this torch, and same with these observers. The examples that you might see famously, like a bunch of piston drawers, pistons updating other pistons like this.
Having feelings for her. Oh. Wait, so Layla has feelings for her camp friend, or the other way around? Which one is it? You know it's late. It's late. I'm a little slow.
Piston doors and a lot of other contraptions are setups where you have a transparent block going up to a piston with redstone going into it, or a transparent block on top of a piston with redstone letting on top of it. In fact, here's an example of my 4x4s that will probably break because of this change, or even this selector array with all these droppers being powered by slabs. Again, this will also break. Or if you want an even more common example, slab towers. This just doesn't work anymore because these pistons aren't being updated by the redstone dust. Kind of need to force an updater in between these pistons. So now these pistons will extend. Not this one because there's no block updates. It's really weird. And again, it's even weirder. They just don't give enough updates to realize that they've been powered. So just like turn them off.
Oh.
Just like this, which is really cursed. Now there is a solution for some of these edge cases, but not all of them. Which is copper ball. If you don't know the copper ball,
So we think we think they have feelings for each other. Got it. I still can't believe Casta when he made me a grandma.
the transparent updater, which you could use to replace things like basic slab towers like this. So it kind of works, but again, it doesn't work.
You seem to be able to read me pretty well.
Sometimes you just want to run an observer line underneath your redstone like this. So, for example, you have an observer line that both powers that piston like that, but can also serve as a transparent block that powers this piston. But yeah, that just doesn't work anymore. And the other problem with copper bulbs is since it relies on them being powered to actually give an update, if you have a neighboring redstone line that's just a little bit too close to this, let's say powers this copper bulb right here, Well, now not all of your pistons will actually extend properly because this copper ball no longer gives an update when there's redstone line it's activated. If they apply this logic where they get rid of unnecessary updates from redstone components,
How? How's that different?
where parent setup, core setup, or this server setup, like John said, oh my god,
Enlighten me. How's that different?
setup, or they're really hardcore, they might get rid of these. Honestly, I don't think these three they'll get rid of. These are probably very safe. But this could get patched, and this is a massive problem if it does, because so many redstone contraptions have setups like this that power components. See, the thing we need to know about QC is that getting rid of QC outright is not really the only way you can get rid of QC. If you get rid of all the redstone components during block updates, that essentially gets rid of QC because that is the part that is used the most. Now, this is editor crafting masturbate kind of interjecting. I'm not saying Mojang will do this anytime soon or at all. I'm just saying that if they try to follow the same logic as Redstone does to all the other components, then that would be bad. So what is the response from Mojang and the rest of the Minecraft community been? Well, it's kind of been one of three things, or maybe they just say all three of these things. The first thing is just fix your stuff, which is a crazy thing to say because a lot of stuff just isn't possible anymore, especially with this last dust change. This last dust change, my favorite, is way more of a problem than all these other things combined. But just telling a redstoner to fix your stuff is kind of being ignorant at the larger problem at hand. The second response I've seen is, but it makes redstone easier, more people will do it now, which is said by every casual every single time Bojack makes an update for redstone. If you guys remember the scope sensor, a lot of people also said that now, oh my god, this makes wireless redstone so easy. This is going to bring so many new redstoners to redstone. It in fact did not bring so many new redstoners to redstone. The thing that brings new redstoners to redstone is content creators. There's literal proof of that. If you see Matt Atway's watch the Redstone series, just because he made that and taught people Redstone, a lot of people that otherwise would have never done Redstone have done Redstone, like Red or Redseed. It's creators, it's Redstoners that teach other Redstoners that bring new Redstoners.
Yes. Yes, baby. Um, I'm gonna say we hold off on listening to the universe for now. Because every time we listen to the universe, every time she listens to the universe, it does not end well.
Feedback for things like this is so important. So this is kind of like a call to action to, I guess, anyone who works at Mojang that may be watching this. Listen to the feedback that Redstoners have this time. Let's not repeat history with the copper ball and just end with utter disappointment. Watch Inspector Talon's video on all those minecart changes. Pay attention to all of those missing door people that have been posting to us about all of their broken doors because of the lack of Redstone dust updates. Just listen. Like the chronically Redstone people who know a little more about Redstone. That's like all we do.
Okay.
Backtrack. Using you like the traps and traps bugs 24/7. No open, no mess. Live life, never bugs, with standards.
I agree, actually. Girls are difficult. We're very difficult. And we're also very hard to read.
9 times out of 10, the instructions are follow. It's amazing kitchen gadget slices fruit and vegetables into long, thin sheets, which you can use with the finger. I'm going to test it out with a courgette, or a zucchini, an apple, and a carrot. And I'm going to find out which one gives me the longest sheet and how long will it take. The gadget came in this box, which was a bit battered when it arrived, and thankfully it also came with some instructions, which is good, because I had no idea how to use it. One bucket and it's all over. One block of TNT and it's all over. All it takes is one bucket of water. But what if there was a redstone that could actually survive water? One that could survive the blast of TNT? The other day, I was watching a Veritasium video on QR codes. There was something in it that kind of blew my mind. If you take any QR code and mess it up or destroy it, there's a chance it'll still work fine. And that got me thinking, what if we used redstone to make a QR code? Would it still work if you blew up some of the screen? So I set out to do just that. I wanted to make a machine where you could type in some text, press a button, and have it generate a QR code. So if you typed anything, the QR code would literally take you to that thing. This is the story of how I made a QR code generator with just redstone. I hope you enjoy. Step so I started by learning as much as I can on QR codes and fun. And I gotta be honest, I was kind of disappointed with the information. I mean, this Wikipedia article, it does a pretty good job explaining this, but not on a super detailed level. I needed the nitty-gritty. I needed to know exactly what every single bit of the article meant.
Yeah, tell Lay to hold off on listening because I don't want this to end like Kylie squared.
Description, you created a website called Donkey's Large Report. And let me tell you, finding this website was an absolute game changer. It's like literally buying a QR code generation. It has all the details and a bunch of tools and tables on the web.
Okay, perfect. I don't want this to end like Kayla or Kylie squared. Same. Like, yeah, she gotta calm down that Riz. I love her. I love her, but she gotta calm down the Riz, bro. Literally, though, all she gotta do is breathe, and they're falling all over her. Like, dang, it must be nice.
Now that the type of character was decided, I started building my gun. I didn't really know what I was doing yet, but I at least knew enough to start making the screen. 33 is 29 by 29, so I made a simple 29 by 29 screen out of 2 by 2 pixels. This allows me to turn on any pixel I want to signal. Then I continued to rebuild the and I learned about all the constant parts of the QR code. Every QR code, no matter what kind, has these 3 squares in the cover, called the finder packages. You basically just tell the scanner, hey, this is QR code. And there are always white separators as well to make sure they're easily. Some QR codes also have one or more smaller squares called the alignment packages. These help the scanner rescale or reshape the image depending on the orientation it is taken. The version I chose, version 3, has exactly one alignment pattern. Next, there are the timing patterns, which are just simple squares near the top of the top. These help the scanner determine the size of the pixel. And there's the dark pixel, which is literally just a pixel that is always covered. And finally, these spaces are researched for 15-bit formats, duplicated to be in 2 different areas. And those are all the constant patterns. The rest of it are improvements of the data bits and the error correction bits, which are not constant. They're going to change depending on what data you see. Back in Minecraft, I went and had to make this constant patterns. In a QR code, white is 0 and dark is 1. So I started by inverting the entire screen with torches. That way the screen is 0 by default, and I could throw a pixel into 1. From there, I just drew all the patterns by listing redstone blocks to power. I also made a simple texture pack to make the empty black and white because I felt like it looked much better. Plus, it made it a lot easier to scan. It's still possible to scan without a texture pack if you transform yourself. So texture pack is not necessary. It just makes it look better and scan better. Next, I started looking at the view. When it comes to Minecraft keyboards, there are a lot of different options. Since I chose each character will eventually be as one by 8 bits.
She does. She does have a great point. Our daughter is amazing. That's our kid. You, you need cuddles. Oh, so do I. Come here. Bring it in. Has your medicine not worked?
Typically, when I make text displays, I just make my own custom font, like in my last project. But since there were a ton of characters this time, I decided to follow this font design created by Aiken. It's the by fixes because this change as well as you can go towards the thing. And it had epic candy, special characters, lowercase letters, even things like liver fees. So when I proposed,
That sucks. Tell your allergies to go take a hike. They need to go take. But honestly, both of our allergies need to go take a long walk off of a short cliff.
since I knew you think I'd make this 50 characters wide, I actually made it 40. I think I just thought that as long as I can put two things, that's fine. I put this little thing above the screen, I looked at the keyboard. Now I can set anything I want and see it at the top. Easy spots on the screen. Okay. Every constant part of the key I focus out, and I can send any message on the screen. So I went back to digital, and it should be about how I feel about this thing. Like I said earlier, the entire ways to learn from is from the data bits and error crashing bits. Let's focus on the data bits first. There are 450 data bits, or 55 bytes. These 55 bytes are essentially one long binary string stored in a staging pattern. So let's just visualize this for a moment, left to right. The first 4 bits are the low. Since I'm using byte rule, it's just a 0 plus 0. The next 8 bits are for the character count. If you want to send a message A, B, C, for example, that's 3 characters. So this would be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 3, binary. Then just fill out the characters byte by byte. Sticking with the ABC example, so we add byte for A, add byte for B, and add byte for C. Next to that, code series. It's just a long set list I can find. Then the rest of the data stream, followed up by 55 bytes, should be built for this repeating path. And that's it. That's the data stream. In other types of draw codes, there are 4 rows for the data stream, just this. So making your own drawing version here, don't just use this video. Make sure to read double check that it's actually correct. As another template, let's put that backwards. Code is still the same. Performance, capability, affordability. Only one place does it all. I'm afraid. Sometimes it takes a different approach to see possibilities.
Oh my lord, babe, calm down. Oh, please don't. What's up, babe?
Still this time. Here were 12 votes for MATT, PAT, WI, US. Here are the 4 zeros. Here's the repeating back. By the way, this is why you can use small places to your characters. Because if you take out the mode character count, and equal zeros. There are 53 out of 55 points that go through. Now that I knew about structure of the data string, I got you work thinking about it. This part of the project actually went really well. These are all the concepts that we do. Starting with the 4-bit mode, well, this is just constant. So we actually need to build them. With the character count, I used a binary count. It starts at 0, and the idea of it is that when the user presses a key, it counts it by 1. So if I type A, B, C, it counts up to 3. Then for the characters themselves, they use the register which is stored as the key in. As I type A, B, C, for example, it's the 8-bit code, it's still like the 4 zeros are constantly. So it's there. Finally, the repeating pattern use this. At first, the plan was to have the rest of them completely add the pattern to the end, just like I did by hand. Then I realized that that's open, and it's just a little trick you can do instead. Notice that when the number of characters is even, you always get this back, meaning it stays in the same physical place. You have 2, 4, 6, 1, any even number of characters. And the number of characters is odd, you get this pattern. This stays in the same place, so we have 1, 3, 5, 7. So I basically just hard coded both those cases, and I made the evenness of the character count decide which one to use. If it's even, it looks like this. Or if it's odd, it looks like this. This trick made it much faster. Now it's probably much simpler. And that's pretty much it. All of these essentially work together to create the data tube. Once they were all built, I connected them together and hooked them to the middle footage. I spent the entire day debugging, which is 3 more minutes by afterward. Honestly, in fact, the most times I see them before rushing to connect the phone. Probably will be taking that from oh, I got it all. And now, after I type the message, you can press this button to create the data tube. Let's go ahead and type in A, B, C, and create. And that list, if you read the right to out, you can see it's correct. All that was left to do for the data stream is put it on the screen. To do this, tutorial says to start from the bottom and place the data upwards following this zigzag path. Once you get to the top, we go over to the next column and go downwards. Do this for the entire data stream. To run through a pattern that's already there, just skip over it. So in Minecraft, I decided to do this by using one redstone line to physically follow the pattern, and another redstone line to lock in place. For example, say that a single bit, you can see it follows the zigzag path. When I click this lever, it locks into place. So the idea is that you send in this the entire stream will follow the zigzag and get placed in the block. And of course, you can leave them that goes down as well. Once that was working, I scoped up the entire workflow, making sure it's absorbed all the pieces of the package. Send in a single bit and see it traverses the entire field. However, you might have noticed it's traversing backwards. Why is that? Well, if you start to send in the data, let's say first of all it's 0, 1, 0, 0, and then lock it into place, it's unfortunately not correct. Placing 0, 1, 0, 0 should actually help run this. To fix this, you can either reverse the data before sending it in, or you can reverse the reverse. I chose the second option, so that's why it looks like it's traveling backwards. But anyways, now I just have to attach this to the screen and send it in the data. Once it's in the correct spot, I made it automatically select. Welcome to the hardest part of any QR code generation, error correction. These error correction bits are secret sauce that allows the scanner to still read it if it gets damaged. Going into this project, I knew that generating these bits was going to be difficult, but I didn't realize just how difficult until I started reading the tutorial. Apparently, you have to do a polynomial division, which I've never done for redstone. In fact, I didn't even remember how to do that on paper. But thanks to more tips you David, I got my confidence back and I started designing some prototypes that I hope. Before I go any further, let's talk about how error correction works in the first units. Let's say I want to send you a message that is the 4 numbers 1576. If there's an error in transmission, you won't be able to tell what happened. So instead of just sending 1576, I'll also send you 2 more numbers, A and B. These 2 numbers will help you check the errors. Now, imagine these 6 numbers as the full issues that we have to find polynomial. I'm going to set A and B so that this can also be written as a polynomial times x minus 1, x minus 2. That way, if you plug in 1 or 2 and evaluate it, you should get 0. If you don't get 0, you know there's an error in transmission. By the way, x minus 1, x minus 2 is called a generated polynomial. And I didn't have to pick 2, just put that in. Plus, there are lots of different choices of written. So now, I need to find the values of A and B. If I provide the message without A, I find the generator, then I get a free polynomial. which is what I want, plus the remainder. And if I move the remainder to the other side, I now have the exact cell I want. A degree 5 polynomial with my message that equals a degree 3 polynomial times x minus 1 and x minus 2. Therefore, A is negative 173 and B is 154. So now I go ahead and send this message. You receive this message, and if you get 0 when you evaluate it at point 2, you know the message was sent correctly. What if there was an error? Let's say the third digit, 7, gets corrupted and it becomes an 8. Now if you evaluate it at point 2, it's not 0. To figure out where the error occurred, one at a time, you can set each coefficient to a variable. Then find the value of that variable, setting the polynomial to 0 at x equals 1 and x equals 2. If you get two different values, that digit was set successfully. If you get the same value, that digit was not set successfully. It should be equal to the value of the value instead. In this example, the value you get at the third digit is the same. It's 7. So you know the third digit was originally a 7. This is called mean-solving error correction. And it's what QR code uses for these business. Okay, but what does it use it for these business? Well, remember how there are 55 bytes on the history? Those 55 bytes are like 1, 5, 7, 6. They're the numbers you want to send. And then instead of adding 2 more numbers for error correction, A and B, you add 17. A through O. You want to look at that one. Altogether, that makes 70 total coefficients, which can be thought of as a 69 through polynomial. Next, and to figure out what A through O actually are, you divide by the generator. But now, the generator isn't x minus 1, x minus 2, it's this. Honestly, not sure why it's this. I'm just calling it equal. Let's call it QX. After the division, you get the volume and the remainder, just like before. The major at the other side tells you exactly what A through O should be. This is actually the further difference. You just leave the remainder as is. These 50 coefficients on the error correction bits that this workflow needs. Just do it each one to 8 bits and fill up the rest of the workflow all the same zigzag pattern. One problem with this is that after the division, the coefficients of the remainder will not be large of particular class, which can't be represented with the incident. A specialized limit of 5 electrolytes will rapid titration. Come on, say for yourself. Whatever you do it for less. I'm afraid.
Welcome back to Google Deep Wednesday. I'm Professor.
This tutorial says to perform all computation on something almost just 6. I'm not going to get into the details of how it goes in this video. The basic idea is that in this field, you need to work with numbers 0 to 25 with 8-bit numbers. Any computation you do must stay inside this range at all times, which is called a function. Instead of doing addition, subtraction, and multiplying, which would create numbers outside the 8-bit range, addition and subtraction can only hit by next over. For example, 3 plus 5, 0, 1, 1 plus 1, 0, 1 is 6. 0. It probably seems weird to call this addition, and it's probably even weirder to say that subtraction is the same thing. But honestly, the reason to find it is not super important. The more important thing to understand is that using the device XOR for addition and subtraction satisfies a function. 8 bits, x1 and another 8 bits, never produce something outside of your bits. And then multiplication is even better. To multiply, basically make 3 pages. Put both numbers to new numbers, which output to as alpha numbers, is in the lookup table. Add the 2 alpha numbers using regular addition, applying logic 55 to the result, and then convert the alpha number back to a normal number using the lookup table. Obviously, this isn't great for so I recommend reading this section, which is more curious about microequations. Again, the main point is that this also satisfies closure. This version of multiplication that would lay outside of the bits. What about division? Isn't that what this thing is about? Well, yes, it's a polynomial function. It can also do that. It requires addition, subtraction, and multiplication. So as long as you can do those three things, you're good. I think that could be focus, especially all the gold and stuff. That would have been really good. Well, and I mean, that was a little bit. You need to realize that looking at gold field is a huge advantage for Gridstone. For example, to make it matter or subtractor, you can just stack a bunch of XOR gates on top of each other. So that's what I did. You put in 101 XOR 011, you get 110. Then to make a multiplier, I just followed the three steps. The two numbers get converted to their alpha numbers using lookup tables. The alpha numbers get added together using the addition plus 155, and then it converts back to the alpha number using a final code. For example, the 42 online city 100 times 25 should be 109. So when I get 100 and 5, the output is 109. And now I have all the tools I need to get all the efficient present. That's it. It was easy. I spent a ton of time trying to out something, pulling the data again, and just really trying to crack my brain inside the best circuit. And after a day or two, this was the final design. It might not look like much, but that's only because I got a lot of simple patience in the process. Then I spent another day or two building it because, and I swear I must have gotten unlucky or something, because I kept running into the stupidest bugs ever. For example, did you guys know that this circuit unlocks a repeater, but this one doesn't? I have no idea why. They have the same timers. But it's true. Stupid bugs like this to me always be fun. What I worked with pain is I used a full system. And eventually I had this a polygon. The top polygon with 55 points of data stream. And the bottom polygon generator is kind of hard to see. It's this rest of the box. I was able to rest of the blocks for the generator because we provide blocks that it's constant. So let's learn an example. Let's say you want to send a message situation. Data stream looks like this. Swap with that. You also make a name. Press this button. After about a minute, I hit the correct name, which means the ease of the error correction. Here, let's go to the controls. We're watching the same. I look at the provider, and I get a survey to send with a big digital stream. There's one more. See it back together here, actually gets in place. Short good end of the big nations should work in this action. So I'll ask you to try to break this vision. So there are 8 different passes, so each of the 7 indications to different. Of the passes will be applied to the data configurations. Not the other shooting effect. So which pass should be used? Well, according to Turing, we should use the pass that pass where it's not curious. Plus, given the standard, that's also what you get some working. To do that, apply all 8 passes and evaluate each one using an algorithm to find something called balance. That's what the blue sword is that should be used. But in reality, you don't have to do this. Technically, you can just pick any max. You might not have the best chance of seeing it, but any max you can will still create a perfectly balanced algorithm. So since this evaluation process gets out very fun, I've actually decided to always use a process 0. And if I still need this class, which will be really easy, I should look at just and check for pattern to make this real. And with that, let's work on generating stuff. All the next debugging, all the problem solving, it was it's my example for this step. I got kind of emotional. This was a project that year ago, I would have been scared to try. After all, vision, no one thinks like how can see that's not understood. When I proved myself that I literally babies and designed their service with that. So now this starts in this location, but there are things that went so trust me, it's a lot of pain. It's also a lot of also.
enjoyed this video, subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, consider supporting me on Patreon. I hope you love something. Peace out, guys. Well, it's flying inside like trap. They without counter inside the sides. You get a track set traps about this today. What's that? Live life, never follow, mistake.
Minecraft is a game about mining and crafting. Quite literally, it's in the name. But to me, Minecraft is mostly about building, and that's been my passion for the last almost 4 years now. I've made hundreds of builds in all different shapes and sizes, and I'm bringing you this long-ass video as an all-in-one place to improve your building skills. And I guarantee you that by watching this entire video, you will be a better builder. Let's get started. Alright, so starting out, I'm going to quickly cover the things you should always be doing or using when building in Minecraft. The first thing, which I feel a lot of people don't even know about, is to use hotbar saves. This simply lets you put blocks in your hotbar, save it, and then you can reload that whenever you want. For me, this makes building so much more enjoyable because you don't have to spend half of the bloody time looking for blocks. So you need spruce blocks? Bang. Detailing blocks, there they are. My second recommendation is to use shaders to make your builds look better. Now, I am half joking when I say this because a lot of people like to claim certain builds only look good when shaders are on, which, I mean, they're kind of right. The truth is that everything looks like shit without shaders on, so I recommend using them if your PC can run them. And if not, just try using those super simplistic shaders that are potato-friendly, like complementary reimagined. Also, if you want your game to look exactly like mine, luckily I have a video for just that in the description. The last thing I'm going to mention is to use reference images when you build until you're more experienced and can build without them. It's easy to be overwhelmed when you load up Minecraft and say, I'm going to build a medieval house. Then you might say to yourself, when do I start? Or, this is too hard, I give up. My friend, your savior is reference images. Now, when I say reference images, I'm not meaning to use other Minecraft builds as reference. That can be a good way to learn when you're just starting out. But the reference I'm talking about is real-world buildings, 3D models, things from games, etc. Go to Google Images, search whatever your build is, and get a few pictures up. Use elements from each one and make it your own. And also always give credit to whatever you use. And one quick bonus thing that you don't absolutely have to use but will make your life way easier is world edits. It's a mod that allows you to build quickly and easily with commands like set, which allows you to set a specific block in an allocated region, replace, which lets you replace certain blocks with other blocks, and walls, which makes walls. I'll be using World Edit in this video, and if you want to learn how to use it, there's heaps of videos out there, so I recommend giving it a try. Okay, and last bonus tip is I definitely recommend exploring builds yourself and discovering the techniques and details that we use. And for that, I have just the perfect thing, my Patreon. Each tier is able to download my builds, with the highest tier being able to download my entire building world with over 1,000 builds I've created. So be sure to check it out if you want to explore the builds I showcase in this video and further your building skills. Themes are a very important aspect to any Minecraft build. You obviously need to consider what theme and style you want to build in. You've got themes like modern, medieval, Japanese, natural, overgrown, rude, futuristic, industrial, dark medieval. The list goes on. It may be wise to choose your favorite theme and stick with that to build up a repertoire of designs and details for that particular theme, as I feel that's the most efficient way to improve as a builder. Once you've gotten a grasp of, let's say, medieval builds, then you can branch out and try dark medieval, gothic, Japanese, ruined, overgrown, things like that. But for the sake of this video, I'll mostly be covering the medieval theme, as I feel it's probably the most popular, and it's also my favorite, and I feel I have the most experience in that style, and I don't really want to give advice for things I don't know much about. Okay, so starting off, we're going to talk about block palettes. And just as a little side note, this is my building platform, and this is the first time I've actually been able to see the entire thing, and I think it looks really cool. So once again, if you want your Minecraft to look like mine, I highly recommend checking out the video in the description, okay? But yeah, so back to block palettes, we're starting off with something pretty simple here, where we just have primarily spruce wood and spruce planks used. You can see I have the block palette off to the left here, and yeah, block palettes are honestly a very important aspect to building that I don't even do very well, because as you can see here, and in a lot of my builds, I use predominantly spruce wood and stone, as shown over there, and in a lot of my builds, okay, so don't judge me, but I do highly recommend actually sticking to some more simplistic block palettes while you're starting out, and then you can branch out to some more complex ones once you've gotten a grasp of how to build with certain styles, or predominantly, I guess. But yeah, so here's some block palettes shown stone actual builds. Here we have like a spruce gate that does look kind of weird. Honestly, I probably would strip a bunch of these spruce wood blocks nowadays. This is quite an old build. But over here you can see another spruce build that's actually done pretty well. We have these like palisade style walls. This is the block palette obviously over here. We just have pretty much 3 blocks throughout this whole thing with a bunch of, accenting spruce blocks. Over here we have like a stone slash a little bit of spruce wood block palette here on this gate where we've used, just our texturing with some stone bricks and stone, which we'll get into in another section later on in this video. And we have just a little bit of accenting blocks with some spruce wood trapdoors. We also got some leaves and stuff, and just a bunch more like accenting blocks as well. This next one is a bit of a nether kind of block palette. Another very simple one. We just got deep slate tiles, warped, high fade, stripped, whatever it's called, and then warped planks as well. And that gives a very nice kind of blue nether vibe to this one. And then over here we have another stone one, except this time we've utilized a bit of a ruined aspect. And over here in our block palette, you can see we have the same block palette from our previous stone build, but we've incorporated these new blocks here to add that ruined look to our whole build by adding, leaves and mossy cobblestone, and we've got andesite scattered throughout that as well. Also forgot mossy stone bricks, we got them as well over here, so they should be, probably right there. And yeah, so just adding those simple blocks there gives us a bit of a ruined look as well. And yeah, so obviously there are a lot more block palettes throughout. This one's a little bit overboard in my opinion. I didn't build this, and I don't know who built this in my world, so I don't know what that's doing there. You can see this is also utilizing a bit of a gradient, which we will also cover later in this video. But here's a really awesome build done by my good friend Extra Builds, and this is using a really nice block palette using some mangrove logs, mangrove planks. We also have diorite and blackstone in the roof as well, and that just gives a very classic kind of barn look to it, and it just looks awesome, dude. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more block palettes out there in the world. I'm going to leave them for you to discover because, again, it's not really my strong point. As you can see, a lot of my builds are mainly stone and spruce, which is something I definitely need to work on as a builder. So yeah, let's move on to the next segment. All right, let's go into some detailing. As you can see, right now I have just, probably the noobiest kind of house you can make. It's literally just a square of spruce planks. I mean, there might even actually be a roof on this, but I've just left it off for now. And so I think what I'm just going to do is just go through all of the details I would add to this to make this into the perfect medieval house. Starting off, of course, with the most important thing, in my opinion, which is pillars. It's just going to make this look way more like a house end instead of just, a box. So let's first grab out some spruce logs, and we're going to replace our corner blocks with those logs. And as you can see, even with just that, it has made this look a little bit more like a house. The next thing we can actually do is connect those pillars up along the top here to have something like that, and that gives us an even better frame. And what I might also do is add in another log in the middle here that gives us 2 separated walls to work with. And I'm just going to quickly add this to the sides and also the backs in just a second. Okay, and here is our house so far now. And the next thing we obviously need to add is a roof to this. Now we could just do, the old bog standard stair roof. This is pretty much, just the roof that everyone adds. And I mean, it is tried and true. It's going to work for everything. But there's a lot of different roof styles that you can try to definitely make your builds look a lot more interesting than, just this kind of roof. Say you wanted something a little bit more mellow, you could go with a simple slab style roof like this. And that always looks good as well. But my personal favorite is to do a mixture of both of those styles. So we're going to start out with slabs like this, for maybe the first 2.5, and then we're going to transition into stairs on that top half leading up to the top of the roof like this. And see, that way we get like a nice kind of like curve roof like that instead of just a straight angle, either really steep with stairs or really mellow with slabs. And that gives us just an interesting angle to work with. There's obviously a lot of different roof styles you can go with. You can go with something like this, where you kind of have a steeper slab style roof. You could do something like that, but with stairs on top instead to have it even steeper, like something like that would go really high up. Those are good for really tall houses. So that's just a couple of different roof styles you can play with. And also what I recommend doing with roofs is using a trim block instead of the main block. Like instead of just using spruce for the entire roof, you can do a trim of stone and then use spruce for the inlay of the roof. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to quickly get that set up and I'll show you how it looks afterwards. All right, and there is our new house. We've got the roof added on. We're protected from the rain now, and it's starting to look a lot better now. But there's a lot more things we can do to this to elevate it even further, with the next most important thing being some depth. Right now, all of the walls are very flat. They are literally just a single plane. And so there's a couple different ways we can actually add a lot of depth to this build, with the first one being to add some stuff on the kind of external part of the base. And my favorite thing to do is adding these little sticking out parts and all of the corner sections of the pillars here. I'm just going to do it to the front for now. But so even just that first thing already adds a lot of depth into this. And you can take it even further by maybe adding some stairs under these. You could add some spruce fences in between these, and then you could put maybe a a lantern hanging from that to brighten up the base as well. You can also elevate this kind of pillar part further by maybe adding like some strip logs at the bottom, and you can even add some fences in between those or something like that. If you wanted to go super extravagant, that looks good as well. And so you can see we've added a lot of depth to the kind of outside layer here, but on the inside layer, it's still very flat. And the next thing we can do for that is actually insetting the walls. And what that means is we're going to simply put the walls in by one block, and that gives us this whole layer here to add detail to. I'm going to do it to this other side as well, just to give us some more room to play with. Yeah, so in here we obviously need to add in a doorway, and we could simply just slap in a door. Also, pro tip, add in your floor block on the bottom here. But yeah, so we can definitely just add our door in, but right now this looks very blocky, and my favorite thing to do is adding stairs above our door here, and that just makes that transition way smoother to the door. And yeah, I pretty much always do that without fail. The next thing we could do is adding a nice arch into this area here. It's always just the perfect detail to add. So we're going to add 2 stairs like that. We could elevate this further by adding in some trapdoors in between these, and that just makes that arch even smoother along there. And that looks perfect, man. Now we're going to keep the consistency going and add another arch like this side. And I reckon a nice window here would look really good as well. So we're going to employ this same tactic here by using a smooth transition into our window. So we're going to add that at the top and the bottom, and then we can add in our window block here. That could be like a fence, it could be a fence gate, it could be a glass pane if we wanted. Any one of those is going to look great. And now turning our attention down to the bottom here, we can do a lot of different things. We could add flowers, we could add azaleas. We could also do one of my favorite things, which is actually replacing this stair block here with a full block. And we're going to add some grass blocks along here, followed by some spruce trapdoors to cover up those exposed blocks. And then we can place in a flower here. We have to remove these to add in more flowers, of course, but that looks great as well. You could also, instead of doing that, you could do something like this. You could just have a single table, add our trapdoors back in, and then on there you could put any kind of decoration. You could put a lantern, you could put a flower pot with an azalea. I mean, that's obviously going to cover up all of the window, but yeah, you could put any kind of detail in there and it's always going to look good. Also, one extra thing we could do to add some depth on the outside here is just adding some buttons on here, whether that be wood or stone. That's going to look great. We can also add our lanterns back on there if we wanted, and now yeah, that is looking like a truly detailed base. Might even be too much detail at this point. I might actually remove these, and that just looks a lot kind of simpler. And yeah, I think that looks better than just having the rest of all that stuff. It's a little bit too much. You could even go as far as adding those trapdoors there as well. I think that looks good too. So yeah, that's our house so far. Obviously, with these inset walls, we do this to all of the sides. So the only downside with inset walls is that you're going to have a much smaller interior, which does kind of stink. So you can see before we had all of that space, and now over on this side, we're going to have literally, this is going to be the size of our interior. So you kind of got to plan out, if you're going to inset your walls or not, and you've got to make your base a lot larger than you thought. But yeah, that's just about going to cover detailing and pretty much the exterior of house details and stuff like that. So let's move on to the next segment. Next, let's get into texturing and how that can actually improve a pretty simple build and make it look a lot nicer. So for instance, here we have this big kind of cliff thing in the water. Honestly, it's a pretty cool generation. I actually didn't build this at all. It's something we can do to elevate this build even further is by adding some texturing to it. And all that is simply just sprinkling in a bunch of blocks that look similar to the original block. In this instance, we have stone, and we could use a number of different blocks like andesite, cobblestone, stone bricks. I usually like to keep it just 2 different blocks in total for instance, stone and andesite. But you may want to mix in maybe like 3, 4, 5 different blocks. You could go as far as that. Like for instance, stone bricks here just definitely adds in a lot of extra detail to this as well. And that's just a really easy, simple way to make a build look a lot more complex than it actually is. And this extends to our house over here as well. We could add some texturing pretty easily to all of these walls, and it's going to make this base look a lot more complex than it does right now. So for example, a perfect texturing block that I would add to this is some stripped spruce logs, because they look very similar in color, but the texture is quite different. As you can see, we have kind of horizontal texturing here, but this way we have vertical texturing. And you can place these like this if you wanted to, but I would always do that. And that's a really great texturing block for any kind of spruce like house build or anything like that. And also the thing with texturing is you want it to look pretty random, and that's going to mean putting blocks close together sometimes. So for one wall, I might do something like that, but for another wall, you may want to keep it kind of spread apart like that. You definitely don't want to have a repeating kind of pattern, I guess. Like this does look like a K, and I would kind of avoid that, and I'd probably just go with something like that. But yeah, obviously it will take practice getting the perfect kind of texturing pattern buttons. You can also use World Edit for this to texture a large area as well. So I'm just going to set this back to spruce planes. We could do / set, and we could do spruce planes, and then a comma, and then our stripped spruce logs. And that's just going to texture it. Obviously, that doesn't look very good, but let's do another one. That doesn't look very good either, but yeah, see, that looks kind of good. I might actually even go in and kind of change that a little bit, but that's also a good way to kind of get an idea of how you might want to texture something. And it's a quick way of doing it too. All right, now on the other side of our big old wall here, I'm going to showcase gradients. So gradients are kind of similar to texturing in that we're making a build look more complex just by simply replacing blocks. But this time, instead of just randomly scattering around blocks, we're going to make a specific pattern starting from the bottom and working our way up to the top. I'm actually going to make this more into a flat wall to kind of illustrate this better. But yeah, so one of my favorite gradients is this one right here. We go from moss blocks, mossy cobblestone, mossy stone bricks, and then to stone bricks. And that just gives a really nice overgrown kind of look. And I love utilizing this kind of gradient in water here. So down in the water, it might be, the most kind of mossy because water has been, sitting on it for a long time. And so this might extend up kind of like this. Another tip with your gradients, you definitely don't want to do kind of a harsh gradient, like, having all moss here, and then we're going to transition to mossy cobblestone and then stone bricks like that. You definitely kind of want to make it a little bit more loose than that. And so that might actually include making our moss maybe look like this or even that. Then we're going to transition into mossy cobblestone for our next block, like maybe something like that, and then to mossy stone bricks, and then finally stone bricks for the rest of our structure here. And that's just a really nice way to get an overgrown look. You can of course do this with completely different colored blocks, like you could go from black blocks to white if you wanted to. This is kind of the only gradient I've ever really used, and you can see that used here in my medieval dam build. We've basically got the exact same thing I just talked about. We've got moss blocks to mossy cobblestone, mossy stone bricks, and then finally into stone bricks. And that makes our dam look a lot more lived in and like it's been here for a long time. Okay, now it's time to start getting into the specifics. I'll be going more in depth with a bunch of different topics with things like interiors, houses, castles, pathways, and more, and I'll provide a bunch of my knowledge on all of those things. Starting off with interiors here, let's just say this is the inside of your base at the moment. Obviously, we don't have a roof. Don't worry about that. But where do you start? How do you get started with an interior? And it's definitely a lot harder, I think, than an exterior. But it'll take a lot of time to learn, understand, and master. So basically the goal is to just fill up our interior with as much useful stuff as we can and just fill in all of the blank spaces with decorations and details and, most importantly, useful stuff. So let's just say, let's actually mark in our doorway here because it's going to help us, kind of design the interior here. So we're just going to say this is the door to our base. And so the first thing I usually take into consideration is where I want to put the bed, because I'm going to want to be quickly coming in here and just sleeping and then going back out if I don't have a bed, in my inventory. This is specifically while playing survival, by the way, but I do like to take that into account, and I usually like to place it directly opposite the door as long as it's not too far away. So let's just make this our bedroom here. And so that leads on to the next thing, which is actually defining our sections. And if you have pillars like I do for our house here, I usually like to use those to kind of define our separated sections. So that gives us a 3-block wide section here to work with for our bedroom. And we can either add in a couple extra beds if we wanted to, or something else I like doing is adding in some bedside tables, whether that be, out of some spruce logs or anything like that. And then the next thing I like to do is add a carpet with the same color of the bed, kind of around in a ring like this. And then under the bed, as you can see, there's a lot of stone here, so we can replace that with some red wool to kind of make it look like the carpet extends under there. And dude, these freaking pillars just keep spawning. I'm literally just going to copy and paste everything and move it away because they're pissing me off. Look at it. Okay, we're in a new spot. We don't have any villagers annoying us. And so let's continue on with our bedroom here. So on top of our bedside tables, we can add in, just any kind of decorations. I like to usually keep my interiors pretty bright. And so I like to add maybe a lantern on one side. You can even do a couple of candles if you wanted to. And then on the other side, I like to add in a flower pot with any kind of flower. And that always looks great for some bedside tables. Another thing you could do is also replace these tables with some barrels if you wanted some extra storage. And so obviously the top here is it's quite empty, and we definitely need to add something up here, whether that be maybe a row of barrels. When I go with barrels, I like to usually make these look supported, and I do that with I like to do that with a nice kind of shelf design, whether that be something like this. You kind of invert that and do something like that. You could even, if your interior is pretty high, you could make these up higher, add in your shelf design, and then you could maybe add in another shelf design here if you don't have enough space for that, so never mind. But yeah, you could go with barrels. Another thing I love doing is leaves. Let's add in 3 oak leaves where our barrels were, and then I like to usually surround these with trapdoors to make it look like, it's kind of contained. And that's just a really nice detail to liven up your base as well, make it look a little bit more lush too. And that right there is the perfect bedroom to me. Honestly, you don't really need to add much more to that. And so I'm actually going to move on to now the floor design. I kind of probably should have done this first, but that's okay. So there's a bunch of different ways you could do floors. And the first thing I usually like to do is add in a ring of a different kind of block on the outside. So I reckon stone bricks would look quite nice for this. Oops, that's the wrong thing. I meant to do walls. 4 stone bricks. There you go. And that just makes the floor look, I don't know, that looks a lot cooler to me. Another thing you could also do is a checkered pattern. So maybe instead of doing a ring, we could do a checkered pattern of stone bricks. Obviously, it's a bit more time consuming, but it's going to look a lot kind of cooler as well. So something like that, you could repeat throughout the whole base. You could use that for the pathway that leads throughout the base. And I feel like I just kind of want to make this look a little bit cozier. So what I'm going to do is actually add some spruce planks on the floor in this little square here. So I'm going to add a 2-block ring of stone around this. And I feel like that's just going to make the base look a lot cozier. Of course, I accidentally undid, so all of my crap here got undone. That's an absolute pain in the ass. But yeah, so with our floor done, let's move on to our next section. And we might make this into maybe a smelting area. So as you can see here, we have a corner section to work with, which is pretty good for anything that you want a lot more space for instance, furnaces. So let's do like an L shape of furnaces, and we could do, if we want a lot of furnaces, we could do something like this. And for these top ones, we could definitely just add in like a little shelf design like this. Even I think that is probably better as well. So yeah, if you want a lot of furnaces in your base, this is going to look perfect. Maybe if you're fine with just having like 8 furnaces or something like that, you could even just do something like this, and that allows you to put in some details as well. So maybe we could even put a barrel like maybe in these corners to add some storage to our furnaces. You can even add barrels up here if you wanted to. And that of course allows us to add some details on top of these furnaces. For furnaces, I usually like to do kind of extinguished campfires, and that looks like fuel that would be used for the furnaces. I like to do like maybe amethyst pots as well. Flower pots also always look good, and lanterns too. There you have it. That's a nice, simple little furnace area. That looks awesome. Next, let's move on to crafting. And something I like to do for these is usually adding our solid crafting blocks along the bottom. And then, of course, once again, adding a shelf. But maybe this time we can do a shelf kind of like this. I think this is going to look quite nice. And on here, we could put in maybe an anvil right there. We could put a grindstone on this one. Maybe up here, we could put a stone cutter. And then maybe just like a lantern on here or something. I usually like to put the transparent blocks, or like the the blocks that aren't full blocks, they kind of have like, interesting shapes. I like to put them on the shelves, as it just makes it look, that makes it look better than just putting full blocks on there. That smells crap, So yeah, that's a pretty nice looking crafting area. You could of course add in more details on there if you wanted to. And now for our next interior module, we could do some storage. And for storage, I usually like to keep these pretty, chest heavy. You could of course make these look super nice by just doing something like this, maybe like adding, it's kind of hard in a corner actually to do storage. So maybe let's do storage on a flat wall like this. Yeah, so it'd be pretty easy to do just some kind of nice looking thing. But I usually like to keep these pretty, efficient in terms of storage. So let's maybe do some sideways chests like this, and literally something just like that. It doesn't look amazing, but you really need storage for survival, and I just kind of like to go all out with it. I'd honestly just fill up all of these walls with storage. But if you wanted your storage to look super nice, you could definitely do something like this, having like maybe barrels along one side and just having double chests up like this. If we had a bit more area to work with, let's just say we'd extend out into these pillars. We could add barrels on either side, and then we could do chests like this. If you wanted something super fancy, you could do maybe like a little shelf like that to hold them up. Obviously, you're going to get even less storage. So yeah, I kind of just recommend just sticking to adding as much storage as you can into one section. So actually this corner might be the perfect spot to just kind of fill up entirely with chests. And honestly, to me, that looks perfectly fine. Now let's move on to our next section, which would be our brewing area. And for these, I like to keep them pretty unique looking. And I like to use polished andesite blocks, as it looks a lot like kind of like a table you'd work on. So I might do something like that, maybe even actually something like that, and put our cauldron on this side, and then I'd have brewing stands on top of those. Sometimes instead of a cauldron, I like to actually use a spruce trapdoor kind of system like this. Actually, might even do it like this, and you can put water in that, and that way you have an infinite kind of water source that you can use for your potions and stuff. Obviously, that's flipping through that there, which is kind of annoying, so I just do that to cover that up. And then, yeah, obviously for our top area here, you could maybe add in more brewing stands if you wanted to, but something I really like to do with these is actually just add a row of barrels along the top and keep my potion ingredients in there. If you had a bit more area to work with, You could definitely just extend this out if you wanted to do something like that. And that would allow you to do some interesting things like maybe alternate between brewing stands and storage up here. If you wanted a bit more of a rustic vibe, let's say you had obviously a ceiling up here and that would connect up with some chains like that. And that makes it look like a hanging shelf. You could even replace these with just some more details if you wanted something a little bit more fancy looking, so something like that. If you wanted to look like this was a sink and it had a tap, you could easily add in a tripwire hook, and that's one of my favorite details to add to something like that. And also pressure plates and stone buttons are just great little accenting details to add on any kind of stone surface. If you wanted a kitchen or anything like that, a pressure plate is a great kind of stovetop looking thing. Buttons look like any kind of like utensil or something like that. But yeah, that's a pretty cool looking brewing area. I'm happy with that. But yeah, I think that's just about going to do it for interiors. So I've pretty much covered some of the main things. You can obviously just repeat these same kind of principles into any other kind of interior design. But let's just take a look at a couple of the builds I've made. For instance, this one I made with a good builder, Cryptozoology. You can take a look at a couple of different interior styles. As you can see, this is completely different to what I showcased previously. We have a very open area. We've got a big old smelting wall on the side here. We've got our brewing on this side here. This is very similar to what I just showcased. And another really good tip as well, if you have a lot of floor space that you don't really know what to do with, these island kind of designs work really well. You can make these out of like just spruce wood or stone or anything, wrap them in some signs and some trapdoors, and put any kind of detailing blocks on top of them. That's always going to look good. And then heading upstairs, this is going to be one of my most favorite interiors up here. We've got a nice hallway that leads over into some separated rooms. We've got a bedroom here with just a bunch of awesome details and some shelves. And then on this side, we have our enchanting in our crafting room. We've got our enchanting in this corner. We've got our crafting here and a little bit of storage too. And then another thing you can do with attics as well is actually just completely fill them to the brim with storage. And in the back here, we just kind of have an all-purpose like crafting and details kind of area. Yeah, that's just an example of using some interiors, in practice. Next up, let's take a look at castles. With this one here being the biggest castle I've ever created. As you can see, it is pretty unique as well. It is just completely submerged in the water, which is, I think it looks pretty cool. But we have a lot of interesting things here to cover for castles specifically. Let's first take a look at these towers on the corners here. And so with this base in particular, I have 3 different tower designs that I'm using here. So we have 2 identical ones here at the front. And then as we transition to the back, we have a slightly taller variant of our front one. And then on the left side, we have a massive, even taller and wider variant as well. And that just gives us a really unique look to this castle, because even if we stand at the front here, you can kind of see like it has a tiered effect. It goes like from small to medium to large. And this is awesome. As you can see here, we've employed the inset wall design that I talked about previously. We've also got pillars out of polished andesite. Then we go into stone brick and our inset walls. And that just adds a lot of depth and visual interest to our towers here. Another thing I haven't really talked about before is building in, odd numbers. I love to build in odd numbers because just for me, it just makes it so much easier to detail stuff. I hate building in even numbers, and you'll rarely see any of my builds using even numbers. So yeah, honestly, just kind of figure out what works well for you. I feel like it's probably going to be odd numbers. So yeah, and I'll just kind of just stick to that. Over here, we have a medieval gate, which is kind of similar to the castle theme here. And you can just kind of see I've employed a couple of different, ways of building towers and stuff. We have a gate between these as well with a bit of a portcullis that's raised up here, which I think was awesome. Definitely a really nice entrance design for any kind of castle. And here is yet another castle design. This time, we're floating. Just don't worry about that. But on the outside, we've added rock farms, which is a really nice detail to add outside of castles. Having a ring of farms around this was awesome as well. You can see some different tower designs here. I've employed some leaves kind of like as a separation point. We've also used a lot of stone bricks in this. Honestly, I would probably have tried to use more stone in this nowadays, but it still looks good. We've also added an archway in between here, some fence gates in this top design. In our gate as well, we have that portcullis design as well. And on the inside, we actually have a bit of a keep inside, which I think was really cool. You could, of course, just kind of make this into a flat roof if you wanted to have a massive interior, or you could do kind of the more realistic thing, which is actually having a keep on the inside of your castle walls. Okay, the next topic that I want to cover is going to be landscaping. So we have this really nice area here that actually is going to allow me to showcase pretty much everything I want to cover, which is going to be perfect. So the first most basic thing is, just smoothing off landscape. One of the things I pride myself on, because I don't know, I always have a habit of smoothing off landscape and making it look nice. Like this area right here, even though this is completely naturally generated, it's honestly pissing me off. Okay, see, we've got these like really hard angles, especially over here and over here. So to make this look more natural and just more pleasant to the eye is just smoothing it off like this. That might even be a little bit too smooth, maybe even just something like that. We're just breaking up these little corners and just smoothing them out. Instead of just adding a single block like that, add a couple of blocks, make it more of a gradual kind of slope like that, you know what I'm saying? But even over here, we could make this a bit more interesting because right now this is almost just like a straight line. We could make it kind of come out to a point out here and then go back that way. To do that, we could honestly just add in a little bit more sand here. We have this branch out to grass or eventually remove that sand. Or just add a bit more of an interesting shape and something like this. And we come to a point there and then we could slowly transition back down to grass over here. And then once we fill in this entire section, you can see how different this landscape is a little bit like that. So now instead of just a straight line, it's more like a curve and it comes back around this way. You don't need to go that crazy on, the landscaping, but it's just something that I really enjoy doing, and I feel like it should definitely be done by more people, you know what I'm saying? And so another thing to do with landscaping is going to obviously be ponds and stuff like that. It is mainly just landscape. So we also have this perfect area to work with here. So the first thing I'm going to do with this pond is actually replace all of the ground with the same general kind of block, which is going to be sand here. I'm going to get rid of all of this clay and this gravel and stuff and replace it with sand, because generally ponds and stuff look best with just one type of block or multiple of, like a similar kind of block. Something else that works really well for ponds and stuff like this is, instead of just having a completely flat bottom, we're going to add in a little bit of depth to this, make it go a little bit deeper towards the middle. Now, obviously, you don't really want to go directly up to the edge like this. You kind of want to have at least like one block gap around the side, something like that. You can even make it look a little bit more uneven and something like that as well. Just kind of branch this out this way. I'm not going to do this entire lake. It's going to take forever, but we might just go to there. Now, because this is sand, we can actually use sandstone slabs and stairs to make a bit more of a smoother transition. Now, I'm not talking about adding this to every single block around here, but maybe just a couple, mainly in the corners along here is where it's going to kind of look the best and not really overdo it. You can see even something a little bit like that just adds a lot more visual interest to this pond. That makes it a little bit more, sculpted and beautiful looking, I guess. Now, if this was a pond where we had dirt on the bottom, I would probably use stone slabs and stone stairs and make them look like kind of little rocks. I wouldn't really add like this transition. I'd probably just scatter them around the place. I even have a plot that we can look at where I've explained that already. Okay, here we actually have a medieval landscape, which is pretty cool. Yeah, you can see here I've added in little stones throughout here, just along the edges. You can see a pretty cool landscape around here as well. I feel like it's a nice kind of cliff, like rock things around the place. We've got a nice little waterfall that trickles down. One thing I love about waterfalls is having like several platforms instead of just having one giant rock. Have it go down to a bit of like a flatter kind of area and then go down again. It definitely just makes it look a little bit more, interesting compared to just the giant drop of a waterfall, you know what I'm saying? Flip back to our little area. So continuing on with our pond decorations, I would definitely add a hefty amount of seagrass into any kind of pond. And you can get out the bone meal and just add some thicker patches of it. But I mean, it also does depend on the build. Like maybe something like this with sand, you don't want to go too heavy on the seagrass. Maybe just keep it a bit more on the lighter side. But maybe for like a grass kind of pond, you probably want more. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. You can also, of course, add a bunch of lily pads into any kind of ponds. I prefer to not make them touching the edges. I like to have them more towards the middle. I personally think that looks a lot nicer. Yeah, just something like that, nothing too crazy. Also, of course, we do have cold blocks. I don't really use them too much, but it just adds a little bit of variety. Water. And now, as for decorations and landscaping around any kind of pond, you can definitely use a bunch of different things. So I'm going to showcase, you could also just use bone meal to add in a bunch of grass around the edges. This is definitely a lot easier in survival, but in creative, I prefer to honestly just hand place my grass so I get it, exactly where I want it. We've also got sugarcane, which obviously looks amazing next to any kind of pond. Another pro tip: if you don't want your sugarcane to grow up to the max height, you can use a piece of string and put that on top, and that'll just stop it from growing any higher. That's a nice, a pretty much invisible way to, just block any kind of plant or sapling or anything from growing. Another really awesome detail to any kind of pond is having leaves start at the edges and then branch down into the water. Looks awesome, especially when they're waterlogged as well. So just small little bushes like this, even just around the edges, not actually going into the water, definitely just make them look a lot more lush. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty much everything I do for a pond in terms of landscaping and terraforming. I think that is looking awesome and nice and lush now. And now the final thing I want to talk about with landscaping is actually going to be cliff faces and overhangs and stuff like that. So right now you can see in this area right here, it's kind of boring. It's just it's just a hill, but we can transform this into something truly awesome looking. So first what we're going to do is we're going to bring this to be just completely flat. So I'm just going to add in a bunch of blocks like this to get this completely flat. Let's get rid of these blocks as well. So we're going to get rid of this gravel. And then so we're left with something like this. And what we can do with this is actually just replace all of our bottom blocks here with some stone. Just up until about there, I might even leave a little bit of a gap between like the layers there. That's looking good. The next thing I would do is get some stone slabs and stairs. Just on this layer here, just add in a couple of slabs and some stairs like this. Leave some gaps in there as well. And then you can bring out this top layer of grass and put it on top of this here. Just have this connect up over. I might even add another piece in there. And just kind of add in a little bit of a mound there as well. You can see we've just added this nice overhang here to our cliff, and it's just, it just makes it look way more like, interesting, I guess. We'd add some hanging roots in these little gaps. We could add lanterns in there as well. So that's added some detail to the top of our area, but in here, we're definitely lacking a bit of detail. So what we could do is just add in some kind of chunks taken out. To make this look nice, what I like to do is just add stone, stairs, and slabs throughout this. And that just makes it feel like it's, like a big crack in the wall or something like that. So here we might do something like that as well. So that just adds a little bit of depth and stuff into there. You could even do something cute like this, chuck a lantern on there. Of course, you could add bushes hanging down from this. You could do all kinds of things. But that's just a general look at, all of the kind of landscaping stuff that I mainly do, which is just smoothing off edges, ponds and lakes, decorations around them, and then just cliffs as well. All right. So that actually leads in nicely to the next topic I want to cover, which is pathways. I've got a couple here to cover, and the first one here being a bit of a natural style path. We just have dirt path. We've introduced a little bit of coarse dirt into that as well. Not too much. You can see we've gone very light on the coarse dirt here. We've also added back a little bit of grass in between the pathway blocks through here. And we have a nice curved shape as well. It's like a bit of an S shape. So obviously that is just a lot nicer than your standard straight dirt pathway. And it's just a great way to add more detail to any kind of village or, literally anything you want to add a pathway to. Definitely just spend a bit more time and make it look a bit more interesting. Of course, we've got details on the sides as well, like these little broken up fences. We've got bushes. We've got some extinguished campfires to look like, fallen logs or something like that. Adding them in between bushes as well is a really nice detail. And so heading over here, we have the same pathway shape, except we've just used some different blocks or a different block palette for this pathway. We've utilized stone bricks, cobblestone. We've even got freaking blast furnaces in there, which is kind of crazy. Pressure plates and buttons are also a really nice detail to add either on paths or to the side of paths. And that just obviously looks like little stones and stuff as well. And then we've got the same kind of little details on this side. We've got a bench, we've got bushes, and this time we have some walls with lanterns on top. This time over here, we've got a brick and granite theme as well. It's pretty much all the same kind of stuff. And then finally, we have a quartz/diorite path over here. So I also will just quickly showcase how to get that path shape. So my general rule of thumb when I build any kind of path is I have a 3 wide path most of the time, and I'll have the same kind of shape for the first 3 blocks. Then as we transition into the next shape, we want to have that same 3 wide kind of thing, but we're going to start it over here instead. So we're going to extend this to be 3 blocks. And then I might just do the same thing for this next shape here. And then now we can maybe start going back this way. And then maybe instead of just going fully back that way, we can come back this way once again. So you can see there, that's just like a really interesting pathway shape. It's very simple and easy to do. Sometimes I might, instead of just having like this kind of, it's almost like a 2-block kind of pathway here, I like to sometimes just add in an extra block here to make it feel like it's still 3 blocks throughout the whole thing. So I'll add that maybe there and there, up here, maybe down here as well. So that gives a bit of a thicker feel to the pathway as well. So whichever way you prefer to do, obviously it's up to you. And maybe if you need to do a sharp corner as well, instead of just continuing on with our pathway shape like this, you could maybe just do 2 blocks and then keep going like this. And that gives you a bit more of a sharp turn, or you can just also, of course, just completely have a turn like this, and that's still going to look great as well. So yeah, that's just like a really cool and interesting little shape design for a path instead of just a completely freaking, bloody straight line. And as for texturing for this, I of course would just add in probably some stone bricks and some andesite. That's my favorite texturing blocks for a stone path. I'm just going to lightly sprinkle those in, nothing too crazy. You can see I'm just kind of just randomly placing them everywhere, and that just gives a really nice look. Honestly, I might even add in a little bit more stone bricks throughout the place too. I like to keep the stone bricks predominantly on the edges as well, just because it kind of outlines the path a bit better as well. So you see that's kind of like texturing with like intent, I guess. So you're maybe keeping them on the sides, and that frames the pathway a little nicer as well. Obviously you don't have to do that, but yeah. And then from this point here, you just add in all of your decorations. Add in some broken up fences like this, have some lanterns on some of those. Then we could go for some bushes as well, some extinguished campfires in and around those. And then the next detail we could add is just some stones once again. Have them on the outsides of the path, even on the path as well. Just don't go too overboard with them. And yeah, so that's just a nice little detailed pathway. Doesn't take too much extra time to make something like that look way better than just a simple straight line with one block. Yeah, that's how you get a really nice detailed pathway. And so that also nicely leads into what the hell? We got some boys around here. Why the hell have they spawned in? But yeah, like I was saying, that nicely leads on to another segment, which is general details and decorations. You can literally add these anywhere, beside pathways, in villages, next to bases, or literally anything. And they just serve the simple function of filling dead space and making areas feel a bit more lively. So you can see on the side of this medieval pathway here, we have a couple of different decorations. We've got a little bit of a campsite. We've got a wagon design here with a bunch of details on top of that. We've just got some scattered barrels and chests and extinguished campfires and all kinds of little decorations on there. Got a dirt path that branches off this as well to make it look like it's a bit of a used area too. And over here is a bit more of a different kind of pathway. We've got like a junction here that goes to Muscle Pot Road. Bonus here. Okay. I don't know what I was thinking when I made this, but actually, yeah, this was to showcase the new 1.20 features at the time. This is a bit of an old build. You can see this time we've actually added a little man-made river that runs alongside this as well. Got like a big rock over here, a big mossy rock. Actually, I don't know if I built that, but if that was a client, yeah, I think I actually built that. Got some scattered pots and pot plants and stuff like that. And then again over here, another little campsite. And that's just some general decorations you can add throughout any kind of pathway or even a village too. You can see here I've just scattered a bunch of these random like piles and barrels and chests and stuff everywhere. These little garden beds too. These are awesome. These are made by extra builds, fences and bushes and even crop farms and stuff like that. So it's perfect little details to add to kind of village. Okay, the next topic I want to cover is going to be custom trees. Let's say I wanted to add a custom tree right here. Now, custom trees can be, quite a daunting task to cover, but with my patented custom tree technique that I've, been pioneering throughout the years, I'm going to make it nice and easy for anyone to make a custom tree. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make obviously the main trunk. This is also going to dictate, how high the tree is going to be. And so from this point here, what we're going to do is we're going to add several branches kind of branching out. We're almost building like basically a very realistic kind of tree. So we're just going to add branches coming out in all kinds of different directions and different heights as well. We might even add a little mini branches coming off of the main branch. I've never actually done that before with my custom tree technique, so we're going to see how that goes. But yeah, we're going to just add a bunch of these branches going up and down all kinds of different ways. And the height is also going to dictate how big our branches are going to be as well. Obviously, if we have a smaller tree, maybe like up to here, we're just going to add very small little branches. So because we have a big old tree here, we're going to add some very big branches. So this technique obviously isn't meant to be kind of the be all end all. Once you've built the tree with this technique, it's going to look perfect. You're going to have to add some touch ups here and there to it. But that's the general kind of idea there. You want a shape a bit like that with maybe 4 or 5 kind of branches. Now the next step is going to be simply covering every single exposed face of these branch blocks here with some leaves on the sides, underneath, on the top, just every single exposed block. I'm going to completely cover it. Just give me a second. I'm going to get all of this done real quick right now. All right. So with that done, you can see our custom tree right now is, it's definitely looking, like I said before, it can sometimes look a bit weird once you've covered all of those branches, but that just shows us that we need to probably add a bit more branches to this, because right now we just have kind of an X shape and that looks a bit weird. Also, what we're going to do is we're going to cover this top stem as well, which is just obviously looking a bit weird. You might extend that to be a little bit higher too. So what we might do is just add another branch in the middle of all of these and maybe vary the heights a little bit more as well. Like on this one, we might start down here and kind of make this one come up like this. Maybe not as far as well. I think these are sticking out a little bit too far. So I might cut down on these just a touch. And we're going to add in a couple more branches around the place. And we'll just see how that looks once I've done those. All right, and there you go. Now you can see our tree is really starting to take shape. This thing is looking pretty nice now and nice and bushy. You can see I've also changed some of the rules as well. I haven't added leaves to absolutely every single block, especially these lower branches here. It does look a little bit nicer having having those exposed. And it also allows us to do things like add lanterns underneath those, which is just a really nice detail for any kind of tree. Another tip is to use the better leaves add-on if your tree is still looking kind of boo. You can see once we've added this on, our tree is looking, it's looking way better. I don't really use this resource pack anymore because it does make the game run a lot slower, which I can instantly tell. You can see our tree is looking really nice and lush. I'm personally going to leave that off for now. But the next thing you can really see here is that our tree is looking very top heavy. We've got this little tiny stem here for this big old bushy tree at the top. And so what we can do to remedy that is, of course, just obviously thicken up the tree. But we don't just want to kind of make a giant thick ass trunk, So what we're going to do is actually break it up and make it look a little bit, just not as thick. And so what I mean with that is we're going to add kind of a broken up stem as if it's, been a 3x3 kind of tree, but we're taking big old chunks out of it like that. Another thing you can do to smoothen that off a bit more is actually use oak stairs. So it doesn't have to be oak, but whatever wood that you're using, use that same kind of wood just to smoothen off some of these edges. You can even use the fences as well to give more of a smoother kind of feel to it. Yeah, there we go. We've thickened up that tree base a little bit more, and it's looking a little bit more, sturdy, I guess. We can even add some slabs to these to transition into those branches a bit more nicely too. Yeah, there we go. That's the perfect little custom tree design there. I mean, it might not be exactly perfect as I've just kind of roughly done it, but that's all of the techniques that you need to use to basically make a nice custom tree. You can see here that this tree design, I've used that same kind of thing, except I've made it a bit more of a thicker trunk this time, but we still have our stairs and our slabs throughout. Up in here, you can't really tell, but we still have our stems, like our little branches, except it's just kind of they're kind of more closer together, which gives us this more bushy look. And I've made it into a bit of a weeping willow style tree by adding these like drooping leaves coming down on the sides. Here's another really cool custom tree that I made that is once again scaled up pretty large from the previous one. We've got these roots kind of sprawling out into the ground, and we just have these like big branches kind of coming out of all of the sides here. And I've also added vines to this as well, just to make it feel more like a weeping willow tree. But yeah, there you go. That's how you make a really nice custom tree. All right, next up, let's have a quick little look at gardens. So I have this theoretical house here where I want to add a garden to the front of it. So you might think, gardens are pretty easy. All you got to do is just add a bunch of different types of flowers, and that's it. Call it a bloody day. You can go a bit more in depth with that and have a much more look at a nice garden. But the first thing being to replace the actual ground block with something a bit more different. So instead of just grass, let's maybe go for some coarse dirt. There we go. That's just a nice and easy way to separate our garden from the rest of, the surrounding landscape. You could also add a fence around it if you wanted to, but I prefer replacing the ground block as it takes up less area as well. So the next thing we can do is obviously start adding in our blocks to our garden. You can see here I have a couple of blocks. I have a couple of flowers here that are very similar in color. We've got mainly white and some pink as well. You can take a look through all of the different flowers here. Maybe let's actually go for a predominantly blue, kind of purpley deep one. it's my favorite color. Might as well. Might even chuck some pink. Maybe even a little bit of sprinkle in a bit of white as well. See, that's probably actually too many flowers, most likely. So let's maybe get rid of that one. So now what we can do is just start adding in our flowers. And what I like to do is just scatter them all around the place, mainly so we don't have two of the same flower type touching directly next to each other. So I just scroll through all of my different flowers. I've already done it there. And just add them in all different kinds of areas. And there we go. You can see that is our garden there. But right now it's very flowery, So a great way to